on the night of April 14th, 1912, as the reality of the situation aboard the RMS Titanic slowly became clear. The decks of the ship were not only filled with movement and urgency, but also with moments of deep human emotion. Please subscribe. Among the instructions, the lifeboats, and the uncertainty, there were quiet exchanges. Final words and goodbyes that would never be repeated. In the early stages of the evacuation, many people did not fully understand what was happening. The ship was still lit. The atmosphere was controlled, and there was no immediate panic. This allowed for conversations steady and often reassuring. Loved ones spoke to each other as if they would meet again soon, not realizing that these moments would become their last. As lifeboats were prepared and passengers were asked to board, difficult decisions had to be made. Families were separated, not always by choice, but by the circumstances of the evacuation. In these moments, people found themselves saying goodbye without fully understanding the weight of what they were saying. A simple phrase, "Akiat reassuranza," a final glance, these became memories that would last forever. There were couples who stood together on the deck, choosing to remain side by side rather than face separation. For them, the idea of leaving one another behind was more difficult than facing the uncertainty ahead. Their goodbyes were not spoken in words, but in presence in the decision to stay together, no matter what. There were also moments between parents and children, where comfort and reassurance became the most important things. In a situation filled with uncertainty, these exchanges carried a sense of calm, even when the future was unclear. The goal was not to explain everything, but to create a moment of peace in the middle of confusion. As the night progressed and the urgency increased, the tone of these goodbyes began to change. What had started as calm conversation gradually became more emotional. The realization that time was limited began to take hold. Words became more meaningful, actions more deliberate. People held on a little longer, spoke a little more carefully, and tried to make each moment count. The environment itself influenced these experiences. The cold air, the dark ocean, and the shifting movement of the ship created a setting that felt both real and unreal at the same time. In such a setting, emotions often become more intense. Small gestures take on greater meaning, and simple words carry deeper significance. For those who left on lifeboats, the act of saying goodbye was often followed by distance, physical and emotional. As the boats moved away from the ship, the people they had left behind became smaller, less visible, until they were eventually out of sight. The final image of a loved one standing on the deck became something that stayed with them long after the night had ended. For those who remained on board, the experience was different, but equally powerful. The goodbyes were followed by silence, by reflection, and by the awareness that the situation was reaching its final stages. The absence of those who had left created a sense of emptiness, a reminder of what had just taken place. Looking back, these moments of goodbye are among the most emotional parts of the Titanic's story. They remind us that behind every large event are individual experiences, moments that are deeply personal and uniquely human. The disaster is often described in terms of numbers and timelines, but these goodbyes show us the human side of the story. They also highlight the importance of connection. In moments of uncertainty, people turn to those closest to them. They seek comfort, understanding, and reassurance. On the RMS Titanic, these connections shaped how people experienced the final hours. More than a century later, the stories of Titanic's final goodbyes continue to resonate. They are remembered not just for their emotional impact, but for what they represent: a moment where ordinary people faced extraordinary circumstances with dignity, care, and humanity. In the end, the final goodbyes on the RMS Titanic were not just about parting. They were about connection. They were about presence. They were about the moments that matter most. And even though the ship was lost, those moments remain carried through history as a reminder of the human experience at the heart of the story. A final word, a final look, a final goodbye.